Hello everyone, welcome back to a new video. So currently I'm back home in New Zealand. Unfortunately I had to cut my trip short to some health issues, but hopefully I will be back traveling again soon. But yeah, today I thought I'd talk about 5 different hostels that I stayed in Lima, Peru. So kind of like a review, I guess, of my experience. Thought it would be helpful if you guys are maybe traveling there, thinking of volunteering, or maybe just curious to hear about my experience and thoughts. So the first hostel I stayed in was Pariwana. So I actually had planned to volunteer here. Originally I was going to stay for 6 weeks. Basically, just contacted them online and I told them, when I was arriving and everything. And yeah, when I arrived there, they didn't really, they weren't really prepared for me. I don't think they had communicated very well within their own team, so it wasn't the best welcome, I suppose, and partly my fault, but I didn't actually ask what area I would be volunteering in, so I was put in activities, which basically means just helping out with events in the evening, like parties and stuff, because it is somewhat of a party hostel, I would say. So yeah, the hours weren't too bad. It was about 24 hours a week, and 1 day off. So I worked 4 hours in the evening, usually from about 8 p.m. or sometimes even 9 p.m. So yeah, I had all the days free, so that was actually good. And also 2 meals were included. So yeah, unfortunately the volunteering didn't work out. But anyways, the actual hostel was honestly, it was okay. It's like I said, it was somewhat of a party hostel, so it's not somewhere I would stay personally. If I was just booking a hostel. But anyways, going into the pros and the cons, I guess. So the Wi-Fi was okay. Certain areas were better than others. And the hostel itself, it was right next to the Kennedy Park in Miraflores. So I would say the location was pretty central, pretty good. In terms of safety, right next to McDonald's, Burger King, you had a lot of restaurants and you were next to a supermarket as well. But being so central, it was kind of loud because of the traffic, and the rooms were fairly dark, and I felt like they weren't very big compared, I don't know, to how many people were in a room. It wasn't very spacious, and the room I was in was mostly staff, so obviously everyone had more things and more luggage, and it was just a bit more crowded. But yeah, the actual beds weren't too bad. They had big lockers, and you had a plug next to your bed and a shelf. And the amenities were alright as well. There was basically kind of an upstairs terrace where everybody would hang out. But I felt like the common spaces were a little bit small compared to how many beds were in the hostel. And then the bathrooms were private bathrooms, so there were about 3. So each bathroom would have a shower and a toilet, and they were individual, which was nice. And there's also a bar and a restaurant, which had pretty decent food, I would say. Even though I never really tried it, but I had staff meals. And there was a kitchen, although not very well equipped, and it was one of those things where you had to go ask for pots and pans and stuff like that, which is kind of annoying. Also the fridge was a little bit small. And then yeah, like I said, it was a party hostel, so in the evenings there would always be events on, fairly social, with people to hang out if you wanted to grab drinks or whatever. Although during the day it was pretty chill. And then they also had a co-working space, although it was very small, and not ideal, although yeah, there were a couple booths where you could take calls and stuff, which was nice. But overall the co-working space was pretty small. However, not many people were there to work anyways. That was okay. Usually, if I wanted to use it or I needed to take a call, it was always free. And then the price was, I would say, it's a bit more on the expensive side. I think one night in their cheapest dorm was about $12 US, which is kind of more on the expensive side, honestly, for Lima. You can get cheaper hostels, but you can get more expensive as well. So overall, Pariwana, it was okay. Not the worst hostel I've ever stayed in. However, it's not somewhere that I would book personally. If you're thinking of volunteering, I would say go for it. It was really easy to get the gig. I would say just double check which area that you're going to be working in. Personally, I don't recommend activities or events because I think I don't know, I think it's a little bit more difficult unless you really love partying and kind of lifestyle and just staying up late, sleeping in late, whatever. But yeah, I think working the bar was cool. Maybe reception would be alright. So yeah, I stayed there in total for about a week-ish. And then, yeah, like I said, it didn't work out. So I had to move to another hostel. And the next one I stayed in was called Healing Dog. And it was also in Miraflores, which is like kind of the touristy neighborhood. But it was a little bit more south. So it was kind of closer to the coast and the beach area, which is what I wanted, because yeah, Pariwana, although it was central and you could walk, but it was about a 20-minute walk, and I just wanted to be a little bit closer. So yeah, Hailing Dog. I didn't really know what to expect, but it was pretty well priced at about $10 per night, and that's also including breakfast. And their breakfast, honestly, is probably one of the best parts of their hostel, and probably why I kept going back. And yeah, it was really good breakfast with like vegan options, and overall it's just a very chill hostel, definitely like very different, and I think it's kind of what I needed after Pariwana, because yeah, like I said, after a week of like staying there, I just wanted to just kind of chill out and go somewhere, you know, a lot more quiet and peaceful. And yeah, I feel like that was definitely Healing Dog. So I stayed in a 10-bed dorm, and to be honest, the beds weren't very comfortable. And also I feel like the 10-bed rooms were a little bit crowded, not a lot of space, and like the beds were very close next to each other, and they didn't have any curtains or anything, so I felt like you were just sleeping like right next to the person. Although I stayed at this hostel twice, and I would say my second time staying there, I had like a better room and a better bed position, if that makes sense. But the first time, like, I was in this bed and it was just like right in between the other two, and so like they were like basically you were like less than a meter away from the next person, and you felt like you were just sleeping like in a row. Overall, I had a good experience here. I made some nice friends. The hostel was very chill. So when I stayed there, there were like two buildings, so I stayed in a separate building to the main hostel. But honestly, it wasn't too bad. It was like, I don't know, like a minute walk, not even. So yeah, the main building had like the kitchen, so if you wanted to cook, you had to go there. And then that was like where you had breakfast as well. But the building I stayed in had a really nice terrace, which I loved, and I would just stay like on the terrace and just like, you know, chill in the sun and enjoy the nice weather and just like work on my tan basically. So yeah, and then the location was perfect in my opinion. It was right between like center of Miraflores, like Kennedy Park, and then the coast ocean area, and really close to like supermarkets as well, and the kitchen was also very well equipped, so that was really nice. I would say the main cons were Wi-Fi, which was really bad. Like, it didn't really even work on the terrace, so that was a shame. But yeah, overall I would say really enjoyed my time here. I ended up staying, I think, over 2 weeks at this hostel, because I just really enjoyed it. Honestly, the breakfast like was really good and really affordable, and the staff were also very nice as well. After that, I moved to another hostel called Baraja Family Hostel. This was in the neighborhood of Barranco, although it was kind of North Barranco, in between Miraflores and actual center of Barranco. And I basically moved here to volunteer. So when I had to leave my first volunteering, I kind of panicked, and I just really last minute, you know, looked for another place, and this was the first hostel that got back to me literally within a day. They had replied, and then within like a couple of days I had already secured the volunteering. So yeah, it was super fast. Their area was housekeeping, and I had done housekeeping previously in Japan, so I thought, like, you know, it wouldn't be that bad. But it was 30 hours a week, which to be fair is quite a lot, and only included breakfast, so I didn't have lunch or dinner. And the breakfast was pretty basic as well. Like it did come with an egg, but obviously I'm vegan, and I felt like they didn't really accommodate to me. Like, you know, being that I'm vegan, I feel like they could have offered I don't know, something a little bit more, but they just basically just like, yeah. So my breakfast was kind of just like bread and like fruit and jam, which honestly was not bad, but I felt like for the amount of work and the amount of hours that I was doing, ultimately wasn't really worth it. And again, I had some health issues, so yeah, after a week I basically just decided to quit. But anyways, going into the actual hostel, it's run by like this couple, I guess, this family, and essentially it's kind of just like you're living in their house, I guess. Okay, starting off with the pros, the Wi-Fi was really good throughout the whole hostel, like even on the terrace, on the upstairs level. and the beds are really comfortable, and the rooms were pretty small, so only 3 or 4 beds in each room. So it was definitely very quiet, not a lot of traffic. So I felt like, yeah, you could sleep fairly well. And also, like, I felt like the guests that came here were like, everyone was really friendly and it was really easy to meet people, and I made some good friends here. I think it's just the nature of the hostel, I guess, because it's basically just their house. It's very, very small, so you know, it's, you kind of like end up just speaking to everybody, and yeah, it's really easy to make friends. And also the family doesn't speak much English, which was fine. Obviously, it's a good chance to, you know, learn Spanish, and I felt like be very immersed in kind of like a host family environment. It reminded me when I was like an exchange student back in Italy. But yeah, going into like, I guess, the cons and the downsides. Firstly, it's a kind of expensive. Like I think they charge around 16 US dollars per night, which is definitely on the expensive side for Lima. You can get hostels for like literally half that price. And the breakfast was included, which, you know, which is pretty good, although there wasn't a lot of like options. Let's say if you're vegan, or I don't know, if you don't want to eat like bread or egg, or yeah. It was pretty basic, I felt like. And the amenities, the bathrooms were private, like as in they were like individual rooms, but it was kind of just like in the middle of their house, so I felt like at the end of the day you didn't have that much privacy, because like you could basically hear everyone and everything. And the kitchen was decent, but again, it was their family kitchen, so literally like it was their house, and you know, sometimes they would spend hours in the kitchen, so obviously it wasn't ideal if you wanted to like make something. And I also felt like the common areas were kind of small. Yeah, again, you were just kind of like living in that house, so I kind of knew that coming in, so I couldn't really complain. But just coming into it, like comparing it to other hostels, like this is just my experience, I guess. And also there was no laundry. Well, they had a washing machine, but like guests weren't allowed to use it, and even when I asked to use it, I had to buy my own detergent. So yeah, overall I had a good experience in terms of like meeting people. Staying at the hostel, I would say if you have a higher budget and you want somewhere that's like, you know, a little bit more quiet, a little bit more homey, I would say it's not a bad place. However, for volunteering, I would not recommend this place, because I think 30 hours is honestly, it's a lot for volunteering, and it's not really worth what you're getting in exchange. That being said, like overall the family, like they're very nice people, and I have nothing against them, but yeah, it just wasn't for me ultimately. So yeah, after about a week there, I decided to move to another hostel called Secret Garden. So this one was also in Miraflores. It was kind of a little bit north of the main area, but still like a few minutes away from Kennedy Park, which is like central Miraflores. And it kind of like was just like, I guess, a tall building, or like 3 floors. So my room was on the 3rd floor, which was kind of annoying, because at the time, like, I had kind of like an injury, so I had pain in my leg, and just walking up and down really was not ideal. Although the pros, I would say the Wi-Fi was good, and the beds had curtains, so I feel like it was good for privacy, and you also had lockers as well. I would say it was annoying because there was only 1 bathroom and like 2 showers. When I say 1 bathroom, I mean literally 1 toilet, like in the whole hostel. Oh, actually 2, but 1 was like downstairs next to the reception, so really only 1 bathroom for everybody. But yeah, even though there was only 1 toilet, somehow like I never really had to wait too long, so it actually wasn't a big issue. But yeah, it just wasn't really an ideal setup for me. In terms of other amenities, the kitchen I would say was really good, and I felt like it was nice because the fridge wasn't like super packed. I think because most people there didn't really cook much, and yeah, there just wasn't that many guests, honestly. Like, it was a very small hostel. I think there was only a few rooms, and then the common areas were pretty small as well. So yeah, overall it was a very small hostel. The vibe was pretty quiet, so definitely very chill, and the staff was really, really nice. Shout out to, I forget, I think his name was Eddie, but the guy in the reception, who was very, very nice when I was like just was in a lot of pain and I had to go to the hospital. He helped me out a lot, so that was definitely a pro. The staff was really nice. Yeah, and the good kitchen. That was kind of it, really. I would say it's an okay hostel if you want to like just somewhere quiet to chill and relax and maybe go explore. But if you are like me and you kind of like wanted to spend a lot of time in the hostel, I would say it's not ideal just because it's kind of small. Yeah, just not great facilities, I suppose. But overall I had a pretty good experience. However, I think after about 4 nights I decided to move to another hostel in central Lima because I wanted to explore more like the historic center. So I stayed at a hostel called 1900, and I had seen this previously and I don't know why I never really went there. Like, I was kind of putting it off because I think because it was really cheap, so I thought that it was just not going to be good. But surprisingly it was actually really nice. So the hostel was only $8 a night, including breakfast. Again, breakfast was pretty basic, but I mean, hey, like, if it's free, you know, I can't complain. The building itself was like really stunning, in a historic building, and yeah, it was just a really big and spacious hostel. Like, the common areas were really big, and they had a nice terrace, and the kitchen was like up on the terrace as well, so it was very spacious. And also because of like after breakfast, like, they had all the leftover like bread and stuff, they would just put it in the kitchen, so you had like free bread every day, which was, I guess, not bad. Cons, I would say, was that it was next to a main road, and obviously in the city there's just a lot of traffic in Lima. So yeah, it was really loud. You would hear like horns beeping all day long. Also, the room, I was in a room I think with like 16 or 18 beds or something ridiculous, but it was actually not as bad as I thought, because I feel like most of the people like weren't even in the hostel during the day, and then the room itself was very spacious as well, so it didn't feel like crowded at all, even if there was like 18 beds in there. The amenities, bathrooms were pretty good. There were a lot of bathrooms. Generally it was very clean, and yeah, the building, again, it was really nice, and the vibe was pretty chill. The central in general, I feel like the center of Lima is cheaper than like Miraflores or Barranco. So you had a lot of like affordable options and like street food. Also, the supermarket wasn't too far as well if you just wanted to cook or buy something. And it was next to like, they didn't have a laundromat, but there was like a laundry place you could pay, you know, a few dollars and get your clothes washed, so that was good as well. And I would say the main con is just Wi-Fi. Like, it was so bad. It would cut and just like stop working at random times. And then in the room as well, sometimes like my computer wouldn't work, even my phone Wi-Fi wouldn't work. Luckily I had data, but yeah, that was the main con. Overall though, I had a really good experience in that hostel. I ended up staying, I think, 4 nights as well, because I was leaving Peru at that point. But yeah, definitely could have stayed a few more nights. Overall, it was a really spacious hostel. It was a nice place to just hang out if you just wanted to chill inside, and it was also not too far from the city center as well. Although it was a bit far to walk to like the main square and the main cathedral and stuff, but you could take like an Uber, and it's just, you know, earn a few dollars. Like, it's really cheap in Peru. I feel like this video has gone on for ages, but if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. That's my experience in the 5 hostels in Lima. I would say if you can, I think it's nice to stay in Miraflores and then maybe stay in the center as well. Yeah, that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Ciao.